Declaring her limit, a young girl firmly states that she is done being a good girl. Someone asks if she would hear them out, prompting Ashley to question what it is. At merely 6 years old, Ashley Elnett presents a picture of youthful innocence. Crown Prince Austen expresses his immense gratitude to Ashley, amazed that his pain has completely vanished. Focused and determined, the young saint channels her glowing healing power into the bedridden prince. Startled by the sudden sensation of recovery, the boy bolts upright in bed. Grateful for her daily treatments, he happily reports that his sickness is finally getting better. Having awakened as a saint at age 6 capable of healing any wound, Ashley humbly expresses her joy at serving His Highness Austen. Gazing at her affectionately, the prince asks her to stay with him forever and calls her his future bride. Flustered by the bold declaration, Ashley tearfully reminds him that they are only engaged. Despite her vocal protests, her racing heart and flushed cheeks reveal how deeply his words moved her. By curing the prince's incurable disease and raising a barrier against magic beasts, this single girl upheld the peace of the Salvary kingdom. The grand estate of the Duke Elnett household stands tall as a testament to their noble status. Grateful citizens deeply thank the Lady Saintess for her help, while she modestly expresses her gladness. Ashley's miraculous healing easily erases the pain and eases the suffering of countless people. A shady transaction begins as an unseen man confirms what they agreed on. Her father, Duke Carlos, flashes a sinister smile as he coldly agrees to the terms. Another nobleman enthusiastically thanks Duke Carlos for his compliance. Hearing the clinking of coins, Ashley stares suspiciously and wonders what is hidden inside that pouch. Snapping her out of her daze, her father scolds her to hurry up and treat the next patient. Jolted back to reality, Ashley quickly agrees to continue her exhausting duties. During a family dinner without her, a relative asks where Ashley is, only to learn her treatments now run from morning till night. Concerned about the excessive workload, someone points out that it is wrong for a child to no longer eat or play with her family. Her mother, Carol, coldly dismisses the concern by stating that Ashley is already asleep. Her brother, Royce, looks visibly upset by the household's toxic atmosphere. Tensions flare as arguments erupt, with insults about being naggy thrown across the room. The bickering escalates when Royce is told to be quiet and compared to a naggy relative. Huddled quietly in a chair, a distressed Ashley overhears her parents fighting again. Seeking refuge from the noise, the young girl hides completely under her bedsheets, ignoring her untouched meal. Clutching a piece of bread, she stands in the gloomy silence of her room, her face shadowed by profound sadness. A bittersweet memory of her once smiling, united family flashes before her eyes. Attempting to face a new day, she is greeted with a standard good morning. Tears stream down her face as she wonders if trying harder will make her family laugh together again. Escorted by a silent servant, the small girl steps into a grand carriage to begin her daily duties. Another repetitive morning greeting echoes as she prepares for her grueling routine. Every dawn without fail, she travels to Salvary Castle to cast the protective barrier. Her spirits instantly lift as she greets His Highness Austen, who happily mentions he has been waiting. The prince gently takes her small hand in his, offering a brief moment of warmth. Her heart flutters with joy, realizing that getting to see His Highness is her favorite time of the day. Walking hand in hand, the two children share a rare, peaceful moment of genuine happiness. Someone praises her good work, officially declaring that the barrier is complete. With a serious expression, the young saint meticulously finalizes the glowing magical construct. Surprising her completely, Austen cheerfully asks if she would like to come to a tea party he is hosting. Hesitant despite her excitement, Ashley quietly replies that she will have to ask her mother. A dark memory surfaces of her mother ordering her to never leave her room except for treatment. Clasping her hands in eager anticipation, the little girl desperately thinks about how much she wants to go. Gathering her courage, she nervously recalls that His Highness Austen explicitly invited her to the event. Before she can fully explain, her mother abruptly asks if she is done and orders them to head back. The gloomy carriage ride back to the Elnett estate begins, trapping her in silence once more. Mustering every ounce of bravery and flashing a hopeful smile, Ashley finally asks if she may join the tea party as well. Sneering at the elegant parchment in her hand, the cruel matriarch mockingly praises what a lovely invitation her daughter has received. Without warning, a vicious slap echoes through the lavish room as the mother violently strikes the young saint across the face. Glaring down at the terrified girl, The noblewoman venomously demands to know what will happen to the suffering people waiting for treatment while she selfishly enjoys a frivolous tea party. Trembling and holding her stinging cheek, the weeping child desperately stammers out apologies and promises that she will do the treatments. Satisfied by the total submission, the imperious mother settles back onto the luxurious sofa and condescendingly praises Ashley for being such a good girl. A chilling, triumphant smile spreads across the woman's face as she purrs her sinister approval of the absolute obedience. Trapped in her gilded cage of endless duty, the crestfallen saint quietly accepts her grim fate with profound sorrow. Later at the castle, the radiant young prince cheerfully notes that his body feels lighter every day, while Ashley dutifully announces that she has finished his healing session. Noting her unusually subdued demeanor, the observant royal stares quietly at his dedicated savior. Fidgeting nervously under his gaze, the guilt-ridden girl apologizes for missing yesterday's gathering, gratefully acknowledging that he was kind enough to invite her. Masking her deep heartache with a fragile expression, the young saint offers him a quiet, mournful expression of gratitude. Startled by her profound sadness, a sudden spark of mischievous determination flashes across the young prince's eyes. Flashing a brilliant, reassuring smile, His Highness boldly commands the startled saint to come with him. Grabbing her delicate hand in a daring escape, he drags the bewildered girl toward a secret back door to circumvent the rigid castle guards. Emerging into a sunlit courtyard, the captive healer is greeted by the breathtaking sight of an opulent, meticulously arranged outdoor banquet. Conspiring with a joyful grin, the boy suggests they simply sneak out for tea and lie that her magical treatment took longer than expected. Captivated by the glistening tiers of decadent pastries, the sheltered girl stares in absolute, breathless wonder. A polite servant bows respectfully to welcome the honored guest, warmly ushering Lady Ashley toward the magnificent table. Overwhelmed by the vibrant freedom of the outdoors, she tearfully confesses her utter disbelief that a world this lovely actually existed. Surrounded by all her favorite sweets, she joyfully loses herself in the delightful luxury of fun, carefree chatter. However, the intense summer heat soon takes its toll, causing the frail, overexerted girl to remark that the sun is incredibly strong today. Her vision suddenly swims in a terrifying blur as a wave of intense, sickening dizziness violently assaults her senses. Swaying dangerously in her elegant chair, she weakly mutters that the paralyzing brightness must be because it has been so long since she spent any time outside. Panic abruptly shatters the serene afternoon as the fragile saint's eyes roll back and she collapses lifelessly toward the stone fountain. Shock and confusion instantly paralyze the bewildered bystanders as the joyous tea party transforms into a sudden nightmare. Awakening in her dark bedroom, the disoriented girl overhears her furious parents viciously blaming each other and screaming about what would happen if she never woke up. Springing upright in her bed, a terrified Ashley is immediately confronted by the looming, wrathful silhouette of her mother. Still groggy and trembling from her collapse, the confused child hesitantly calls out to her hostile parents. Instead of receiving comfort, she is violently berated for causing a huge mess and demanded to know why she cannot just be a good girl. The merciless interrogation intensifies as her guardians fiercely demand to know what she was thinking by daring to step out of line. Broken by the emotional abuse, the sobbing child desperately begs for forgiveness and promises over and over that she will be good. Returning to her grueling royal duties with dead, hollow eyes, the traumatized saint robotically informs His Highness Austen that she has finished. A heavy, suffocating silence stretches between the two children as the prince casts his gaze downward in profound discomfort. Desperate to mend their fractured bond, the anxious girl gently excuses herself and pleads to know if they could talk for a moment. Refusing to meet her pleading gaze, the young royal's profile hardens into an icy, unreadable mask of rejection. Without speaking a single word of comfort, the cowardly prince turns his back and walks away, completely abandoning the girl who saved his life. The massive wooden doors slam shut with a deafening bang, physically and emotionally severing the connection between the healer and her only friend. Left entirely alone in the grand chamber, the shattered girl stands motionless in a crushing, agonizing silence. The once warm royal now only spares her a cold, disdainful backward glance, permanently freezing her out of his life. Drowning in misplaced guilt, the weeping saint internally agonizes that His Highness has changed ever since the tea party, tragically believing she caused trouble and ruined everything. Her agonizing isolation is compounded when she is mercilessly showered with cruel gossip and icy stares from the kingdom's ungrateful nobles. Stripped of all respect, The exhausting cycle continues as even her regular patients eventually stop offering their basic thanks. Despite the prince becoming increasingly cold, the tragic rift only deepened even as the selfless Ashley continued treating his ailments with unwavering sincerity. Clutching her chest in agonizing despair, the tearful girl constantly punishes herself by wishing she had simply tried a little harder. Staring blankly down the dark, twisting corridors of her home, she hopelessly wonders why absolutely nothing in her life is going right. Suddenly, a sharp knock at her bedroom door pierces the gloom, heralding the arrival of the one saving grace she still possessed. Bursting into the room with a radiant smile, her fiercely protective brother Royce boldly declares that they are taking the day off. Paralyzed by her deeply ingrained fear of punishment, the anxious girl stammers that it is okay, desperately worrying about her mandated treatments. Gripping her hand firmly, the rebellious boy insists they go have some fun, assuring his panicked sister that their tyrannical father and mother won't be back until night. Backing their daring escape, a loyal maid cheerfully tells them to leave the rest to her, confirming that there are no severe medical cases expected today. A frantic maid named Clara rushes to her milady, loudly insisting that she can handle simple treatments. A young girl with large, expressive eyes wonders aloud if it is truly okay for her to have this much freedom. The young girl joyfully walks hand in hand through a sunlit town plaza with a cheerful boy. The boy smiles softly and remarks that they have at least made a pleasant memory together before his departure. Beaming with genuine warmth, he firmly adds that he is truly glad. Sitting together by a beautiful fountain, the girl happily exclaims that it has been incredibly long since she had such a fun day. The boy suddenly breaks the news that he is leaving home to study abroad in a neighboring country for 6 years. Calling out her name, he catches Ashley completely off guard. He gently apologizes for not being able to stay by her side, while Ashley quietly begs him not to apologize. Gripping her cup tightly with tears welling in her eyes, she listens as he asks her to wait for him. The boy makes a fierce promise to study hard and return strong enough to help her. 5 years pass in a flash, and someone excitedly wishes Ashley a happy 15th birthday. Remembering her past promise with tear-filled eyes, an older Ashley happily reaffirms that she is still waiting. A young man affectionately pats her head, warmly noting that he missed her too. Ashley warmly thanks her brother Royce for his beautiful bouquet, expressing how much she missed him while a mysterious cloaked figure stands behind them. Realizing his lapse in manners, Royce introduces his cloaked friend and escort, Bart. Ashley glances curiously at the silent, hooded figure standing mysteriously beside her beaming brother. She tentatively asks her brother about the identity of the gentleman accompanying him. Lowering his hood to reveal striking features, Bart formally introduces himself to Lady Ashley. He reaches out gracefully to take her delicate hand in greeting. With smooth elegance, Bart bows low and places a gentle, chivalrous kiss upon her hand. Ashley stares in mild shock, utterly captivated by the sudden appearance of this handsome man. Bart slowly lifts his head, his sharp, piercing eyes gazing back at her with an unreadable intensity. Staring up at his tall frame, Ashley wonders to herself if he could possibly be someone she already knows. Pouting slightly, she shyly confesses to Lord Bart that she feels they have met somewhere before. Later, Ashley admits to feeling spaced out and entirely devoid of any appetite. Looking melancholic, she notes that a full year has passed since that birthday and wonders if her lingering feelings are merely her imagination. Her mother violently slams a fist on the dining table, screeching at a startled Ashley to stop staring and eat quickly. Ashley is shocked to learn they must visit the royal castle again tonight, while her mother impatiently demands she hurry. Struggling with her meal, Ashley realizes in dismay that she simply cannot force the food down. An older man clicks his tongue in disgust, angrily blaming Ashley's weakening barrier for the monsters slipping into the palace. Trembling under the harsh accusation, Ashley stammers defensively and insists she would never allow such a thing. Her father ruthlessly berates her for endangering the castle, commanding her to get her weak barrier together. The intense stress and verbal abuse finally take their physical toll as Ashley groans in severe pain. Clara the maid cries out in utter panic as Ashley suddenly collapses backward toward the floor. Someone immediately shouts that they will go at once to fetch emergency help. Panting heavily, Ashley leans weakly on Clara as the maid desperately informs the unfeeling parents of her dangerously high fever. Her mother scowls down at her deeply sick daughter with absolute, chilling apathy. Ashley realizes with crushing despair that her own mother and father genuinely do not care what happens to her. Clara tightly holds the fiercely sweating and trembling girl close to her chest, glaring upward in frustration. Ashley tightly grips her dress, tragically accepting that the country's crisis is far more important than her own fleeting well-being. Pushing through the debilitating fever, she slowly stands and dutifully declares she will prepare to leave for the palace. Despite Clara's intensely worried gaze, Ashley offers a strained reassurance that she is perfectly fine. Stumbling weakly against the ornate hallway wall, she mutters that she must quickly recast the barrier. Her vision blurs rapidly as she tragically realizes her legs are completely giving out beneath her. Gasping for air with her eyes closed, she completely loses her balance and begins to fall. Just before she hits the ground, strong arms wrap securely around her shoulders as Bart smoothly catches her fall. Blinking through her feverish haze, she looks up in sheer confusion to see Bart staring intently down at her. Flushing deeply from the fever, Ashley offers him a breathless, undeniably grateful smile. Bart remains utterly silent, his intense and unreadable gaze fixed firmly on her flushed. Royce bursts into the room with a loud clack, frantically urging someone to hold on and rest. Supporting her weak frame, Bart gazes down with concern and asks if she is okay, while she weakly questions why he is here. Royce rushes forward and calls out to his sister, explaining that he heard the alarming news from Clara. Ashley's father commands her to leave for the castle immediately, while her mother furiously warns Royce not to butt in where he isn't needed. Looming menacingly over the terrified girl, the parents ruthlessly silence Royce's protests and completely dismiss his argument that she is too sick to travel. Bart's eye widens in sharp, silent realization. As her mother cruelly snaps at Royce to stay quiet, Ashley weakly stammers that the entire situation is her fault. Royce fiercely demands that his parents treat Ashley better, but the exhausted girl weakly pleads with her brother to stop fighting. Ashley tightly shuts her eyes and pants heavily, completely overwhelmed by the intense fever and stress. Before she can hit the floor, Bart moves with lightning speed and securely catches the collapsing girl in his arms. Bart narrows his piercing eyes, his expression darkening with a cold and unspoken fury. Trembling with suppressed anger, Bart tightly clenches his fist as he holds the frail girl. He takes a measured step back, quietly assessing the hostile environment of the room. With effortless strength, Bart scoops Ashley up into a gentle, protective bridal carry. Flushing with deep shame, Ashley weakly apologizes for forcing him to witness such a disgraceful family dispute. Bart silently carries her over to the bed and gently sets her down against the soft pillows. Looking away in sorrow, Ashley tries to desperately convince herself that her parents only say these harsh things for her own sake. Sitting alone with her thoughts, she silently wonders if her life has truly always been this miserable. She tightly grips her bedsheets, struggling to hold back her overwhelming emotional pain. Bart sits quietly beside the bed as Ashley laments that she only ever makes her brother worry. Bart suddenly speaks up, catching her completely off guard. Staring firmly ahead, he denies her self-deprecating words and insists that she is a genuinely kind person. Turning to give her a warm, reassuring smile, Bart gently adds that this is simply what he believes. Ashley stares at him in stunned silence while he awkwardly rubs the back of his neck. Noticing a wound on his hand, Ashley urgently asks Lord Bart if he has been hurt. Utterly captivated by his incredibly gentle smile, she gazes at him in quiet awe. She gently takes his large, calloused hand in hers and envelopes it in a soft, glowing healing magic. Releasing a relieved breath, Bart sincerely thanks her and remarks that he is glad he could be of help. Bart tries to dismiss the injury as nothing serious, but Ashley firmly insists it would be bad to let it worsen. Gazing down at his perfectly healed skin, Bart silently reflects that she is exactly who he thought she was. He softly murmurs that she hasn't changed at all, leaving Ashley slightly confused by the intimate remark. Royce suddenly bursts back into the bedroom, urgently calling out his sister's name. Royce announces he has negotiated a temporary truce, prompting Bart to state he must return to the kingdom of Paisley to secure a leave of absence. Standing by her window, Ashley watches a horse-drawn carriage prepare to depart the estate. Pressing her hands against the glass pane, she silently thanks her brother and Lord Bart for their immense kindness. Flashing back to their farewell, Bart sincerely apologizes and asks if she can wait for him, to which Ashley happily agrees. The peaceful memory violently shatters as Ashley's mother aggressively bursts into the room. Sneering with profound cruelty, her mother demands she move immediately now that the nuisances are finally gone. Inside a moving carriage, Clara tearfully apologizes to her milady, but Ashley gently reassures the crying maid that it isn't her fault. Her parents coldly demand to know if she intends to abandon the people, ruthlessly ordering her to heal them without delay. A loud, aggressive knock on the carriage window severely startles both Ashley and Clara. Ashley's eyes widen in absolute, paralyzing terror at the sound. Trembling under the mounting pressure, she painfully accepts that this disastrous monster invasion is her fault too. Inside the chaotic carriage, her father screams to make the horses fly while her mother furiously yells for quiet. The horrifying, shadowy visages of monstrous creatures flash aggressively past the speeding carriage. Standing before the massive magical seal, Ashley trembles violently under the demanding eyes of her family. Her entire body shakes uncontrollably as the immense physical strain and intense fever take their toll. Sweating heavily, Ashley silently admits to herself in absolute despair that she simply cannot do it. Gripping the glowing magical crystal, she gasps for breath and realizes her fading strength cannot set the barrier right. Her parents viciously berate her to do her duty without relying on others, completely ignoring Clara's desperate cry that any more strain will literally break her body. 2 days later, a pale hand weakly clutches at the bedsheets as a sharp, sudden cry of distress breaks the heavy silence. A young girl thrashes wildly in her bed, her long hair splayed out as she remains trapped in the terrifying grip of a feverish nightmare. Still caught in the throes of her agonizing dream, she quietly begs someone to forgive her. Panic sets in as she desperately insists that she must immediately cast the protective barrier despite her weakened state. An anxious maid rushes to her side, firmly warning her milady that sitting up so suddenly is incredibly dangerous while she still burns with a high fever. The devoted maid continues to desperately hover over the bed, trying to calm her distressed milady. Blaming herself entirely, the feverish girl worries the entire country will fall apart if she isn't perfectly good and fails to do her duty properly. The frantic maid gently urges her to just lay down and rest, but the stubborn girl insists disaster will strike if she doesn't act. Finally pulling rank, the maid strictly commands her to let her body rest for now, revealing that this is a direct order from His Majesty the King. Hearing this entirely unexpected royal command, the bewildered girl pauses, her struggling in genuine confusion. Realizing the unyielding gravity of the king's decree, she nervously concedes that she must obediently begin her medical treatments. Just outside her quarters, harsh voices sneer about what a lazy girl she is, demanding someone wake Ashley up since she is still inactive. A sudden, sharp click of the heavy door handle interrupts the intensely stressful atmosphere. Ashley's weary eyes widen in absolute surprise as she spots her beloved brother Royce standing protectively in the doorway. Royce passionately argues with their parents that Ashley's frail body is already at its absolute limit, warning them she could break beyond repair without proper rest. Turning to his sister with teary eyes and deeply flushed cheeks, Royce expresses immense, heartfelt relief that his precious Ashley is finally awake. Welcoming him back warmly, Ashley learns her devoted brother secured a leave of absence from school specifically to stay by her side for a while. Clenching his fist with fierce, protective determination, Royce promises to personally answer anyone who complains so she never has to worry about anything. Completely ignoring her weak protests, he firmly bans her from performing any saint duties until she is fully recovered, aggressively questioning if she wants to collapse again. After finally taking her first real rest in ages, Ashley makes a full recovery, and a brief 2 weeks pass by peacefully. Looking back at her brother with renewed resolve, she reminds him of her solemn promise to come back strong enough to help the kingdom. Brushing off his incredibly overprotective offer to accompany her, she warmly insists she can go alone to answer the king's royal summons. Walking completely alone, she internalizes deep guilt, agonizing that the situation must be a total disaster by now since she couldn't cast the barrier or heal anyone while resting. Her eye suddenly narrows in sharp focus as she notices something entirely unexpected shimmering in the distant landscape. The grand, imposing spires of Salveri Castle loom ahead, already perfectly surrounded by a massive, brilliantly glowing magical barrier. Absolute shock registers on her delicate face as she realizes the massive protective barrier is inexplicably already up and fully functional. Her solitary footsteps echo loudly in the quiet, imposing halls as she approaches the royal throne room in a state of profound bewilderment. Staring down the long, shadowed corridor of the palace, she quietly and anxiously wonders how any of this is even possible. Entering the grand chamber with a polite bow, she is immediately met by the stern, unsmiling gazes of the imposing king and queen of Salveri. Curtsying gracefully, she hopes they have been well, but the aggressive king instantly commands her to stop with the pleasantries. The king glares down from his elevated throne, coldly addressing Ashley by name with a tone entirely devoid of warmth. Startled by his freezing, hostile demeanor, she tentatively and respectfully asks what the matter could possibly be. The royal couple solemnly declares that there is something of the utmost importance they must formally tell her today. Without a single ounce of hesitation, the king ruthlessly informs the shocked girl that they absolutely no longer need her. Ashley stands frozen in absolute, terrified silence, her mind desperately struggling to process the devastating weight of his words. The royals cruelly elaborate on their decree, stating firmly that they have absolutely no use for a fake and incompetent saint anymore. The queen sneers maliciously from behind her ornate fan, revealing that the true saint, Yuana, was summoned from another world while Ashley carelessly abandoned her duties to the kingdom. Utterly stunned by the massive revelation, Ashley softly repeats the words about a real saint in a state of total, uncomprehending disbelief. The king coldly twists the knife further, stating that Yuana suits Austin far better than a careless girl, noting that the new arrival actually put up the current barrier. Desperation bubbling up in her chest, Ashley frantically thinks she has to say something to defend her life's work. Gripping the ruffled fabric of her dress tightly, she prepares to vehemently argue against these massive, incredibly unjust accusations. However, before she can even speak a single word, the king officially declares that Ashley and Austin's engagement is hereby annulled as of today. Palace guards suddenly lunge forward to cross their halberds in front of her as the king loudly declares this to be his absolute, final judgment. The king finalizes his crushing decree by proudly announcing that Austin's new fiancée shall be Yuana Ida, leaving Ashley completely broken and bewildered. Abruptly changing the subject to finances, the king furiously glares down and asks if they were all simply just wallets for her to selfishly squeeze. The heavy, terrifying accusation hangs thick in the air as Ashley stares blankly at the openly hostile monarchs in stunned silence. A nearby noble, Duke Carlos, aggressively steps forward with a loud clink of coins, confirming the king's dark suspicions just as he promised. Trembling and utterly confused by the rapidly escalating situation, Ashley stammers out a desperate plea, asking what they are talking about regarding wallets. The king furiously slams his fist down, screaming at her not to play innocent after allegedly charging outrageous fees to live in pure luxury. Bowing deeply in a desperate, tearful panic, the thoroughly confused former saint apologizes profusely and insists she knew absolutely nothing about any such fees. Gasping for breath, she collapses onto the cold floor in utter exhaustion. From his high throne, the king violently commands her not to lie, accusing her of hiding away in the ducal manor this entire time. Tears drip silently onto the floor as she bows deeply, desperately whispering that her words are not a lie. She remembers being strictly confined by her family, explicitly ordered not to leave her room except for necessary medical treatments. The furious queen sneers down at her, venomously asking what happened to the suffering people waiting for treatment while she was allegedly enjoying luxurious tea parties. Sobbing heavily against the cold floor, Ashley realizes with crushing despair that the ones lying to the crown all along were her own father and mother. Absolutely disgusted by her presence, the king finally barks a harsh, unforgiving command for her to get out of his sight immediately. The king lets out a heavy, exasperated sigh, casting a dark shadow over his unyielding face as he permanently dismisses the fallen saint. Utterly shattered by the brutal betrayal, she cries bitterly, realizing that she too was cruelly deceived by the people she trusted most. The painful sting of betrayal cuts deep into her heart, hurting worse than any physical wound she has ever endured. Wandering aimlessly in a daze, she eventually finds herself standing alone beside a grand fountain in the beautiful palace courtyard. Suddenly, a familiar voice calls out Ashley's name, briefly breaking her out of her miserable, heart-wrenching trance. She turns her head slowly, her large eyes still brimming with fresh, unbroken tears of despair. A cheerful girl smiles brightly, thanking Ashley directly and excitedly announcing that her recovery now allows her to walk all the way out to the courtyard. Recognizing the imposing shadow of the new arrival, Ashley breathlessly murmurs the name of His Highness Austin in a moment of desperate hope. Her tear-filled eyes widen in a sudden jolt of surprise as she catches sight of the prince finally stepping into the serene courtyard. The cheerful girl continues to smile warmly, promising to be the one to help Ashley this time since the former saint is feeling so visibly down. A brilliant, blinding light suddenly flares out from the gazebo, momentarily obscuring the surrounding figures in a divine glow. Prince Austin steps fully out into the light, wearing a gentle smile and an elegant formal coat tailored for royalty. Seeing the prince approach, a small flicker of hope ignites in her chest, making her think that perhaps His Highness will finally listen to her side of the story. The cheerful girl repeats her sweet, comforting promise to help Ashley through this difficult ordeal. Driven by a sudden burst of desperate optimism, Ashley dashes forward, clinging to the fragile belief that Austen might actually be able to save her from this nightmare. Reaching out her hand in pure desperation, she loudly and pitifully calls out to His Highness Austen. However, she freezes mid-step as absolute, paralyzing horror completely takes over her pale, tear-stained features. Right before her eyes, the newly arrived saint intimately wraps her arms around Prince Austen, practically glowing with joyous, unbothered affection. Nestled securely in the prince's strong arms, the new saint flashes an incredibly bright, knowing smile toward the devastated girl. Ashley stops dead in her tracks, her broken mind totally failing to process the sight as she blankly wonders who this mysterious girl is. Prince Austen slowly notices her arrival, his voice entirely devoid of warmth as he flatly acknowledges Ashley's sudden presence in his private moment. Without skipping a single beat, the prince glares down at her and harshly commands the fake saint not to come anywhere near him. A literal and metaphorical shattering perfectly visualizes the destruction of Ashley's mind as the man she loved ruthlessly drives the final nail into her coffin. Shielding the new girl with his body, Austen aggressively points an accusing finger at Ashley, screaming that this filthy woman completely deceived them all. The new saint lightly taps Austen's arm, playing the perfect peacemaker by softly scolding Lord Austen for saying something so incredibly cruel. Clasping her hands together in mock sympathy, the new girl exclaims that Ashley just looks entirely too pitiful to be insulted any further. Ashley stands completely motionless, utterly destroyed by the condescending pity radiating so effortlessly from her beautiful, victorious replacement. Austen immediately praises Yuena's impossibly kind heart as true proof of a real saint, while Yuena giggles coyly at the lavish compliment. Staring vacantly into space, Ashley's broken mind spirals entirely into darkness as she quietly questions if she truly is just a useless fake. The humiliating insult echoes endlessly in her head, leaving her completely stunned that she has been entirely reduced to someone pitiful. Turning her back on the happy couple, she agonizingly realizes that the 10 full years she sacrificed for Austen and this country's future seemingly meant absolutely nothing. A harsh voice demanded respect, cruelly declaring that they were no longer engaged and forbidding her from using his name so casually. Shock rippled through the air as someone questioned if she had truly been Prince Austen's fiancée. Stuttering in disbelief, Ashley could barely force Prince Austen's name past her lips. Austen gazed affectionately at Yuena, reassuring her not to worry because she was his new fiancée and the true saint. Overjoyed at the prospect of becoming a princess, Yuena embraced him and declared their love was destined by fate. Standing in the background, Ashley watched the new couple embrace as her entire world shattered. Tears welled up in her dark, empty eyes as she silently pleaded to know why this was happening. Trembling with devastation, she retreated into the desolate hallway of the grand estate. Her parents glared at her with intense disgust, their faces twisting with fury at her sheer existence. Without warning, a heavy hand clamped down violently onto her head. They viciously berated her, screaming that she was nothing but a useless girl. A terrified maid frantically begged the master and mistress to stop their cruel assault. As Ashley whimpered in pain, her abusers viciously commanded the maid to shut up and stay out of it. Dragging her ruthlessly across the floor, her father roared that she had completely disgraced the Elnett family name. Panicking over their lost status, her parents shrieked that the broken engagement was invalid and demanded to know where it left them. Cursing in sheer frustration, a hand slammed down heavily nearby. The sudden violence shattered a nearby vase, sending delicate flowers tumbling into the wreckage. Boiling with misplaced anger, her father hurled vicious insults her way. They furiously mocked her for being inferior to some otherworld saint and screamed about investors demanding their treatment fees back. Pacing in a frenzy, her father yelled that he simply could not believe this disastrous turn of events. Turning his venom back to Ashley, he spat that she was pathetic for failing to hold onto her own fiancé. Broken and defeated, Ashley wondered what good her powers were if she couldn't even protect herself. In a fit of blinding rage, an attacker hurled a heavy lamp directly at her head. Blood trickled down Ashley's face as her mother sneered at her absolute uselessness. Just before the object could strike her again, a tall, cloaked stranger suddenly materialized to intercept the blow. Pulling her gently into his embrace, he softly apologized for arriving so late. With fluid grace, he calmly set the shattered lamp down onto the debris-covered floor. Shielded by the stranger, Ashley weakly called out to her stunned parents. Leaning into her savior's touch, she marveled at the comforting warmth radiating from his hands. Outraged by the sudden intrusion, her father aggressively demanded to know what the stranger thought he was doing. Radiating a deadly aura, the man ordered them to stay away from Ashley or he would physically force them to. Grinding his teeth in barely contained fury, he condemned them for hurting her so deeply without an ounce of remorse. Hearing her name, Ashley weakly wondered why all of this nightmare was happening to her. Retreating like cowards, her parents scoffed about her lack of appreciation and threatened to file a formal complaint. As the abusers fled, the stranger urgently ordered the frantic maid, Clara, to help treat Ashley's wounds immediately. Her vision blurring rapidly, Ashley realized she was losing consciousness as the stranger called her name. Slipping into the dark, she weakly whispered a final, heartbreaking apology. Staring down at her battered form, the man's eyes filled with sorrow as he muttered that he had failed her once again. Despite her fading senses, the strange word, again, echoed confusingly in her mind. Catching a glimpse of his devastated expression through half-open eyes, she wondered why he looked so utterly heartbroken. The man's desperate apologies washed over her as the last remnants of her strength finally gave out. Some time later, her eyes slowly fluttered open to the soft click of a door. Recognizing the familiar surroundings of her own room, she heard a relieved voice announce that she was finally awake. Gathering her scattered thoughts, she looked at the man and realized he hailed from the kingdom of Paysleeve. Startled when he calmly confirmed her suspicion, she let out a tiny gasp of surprise. Ignoring his own status, the man leaned in gently to ask if she was feeling okay. Staring intently into his eyes, she breathed out the name of Prince Gilbert. The staggering realization hit her that this man who saved her was actually the Crown Prince of Paysleeve. Gilbert praised her incredible innate power, explaining that sharing half his mana with her had thankfully helped her recover. Smiling softly as he brushed a stray lock of hair from her face, he quietly agreed that she was going to be all right. Grappling with a heavy conscience, a light-haired man touches his forehead and solemnly apologizes for keeping a significant secret hidden from her. Sitting beside Ashley in a dimly lit bedroom, a dark-haired man confesses that he was actually tracking a rogue mage, prompting her to immediately question his true motives. Closing the distance between them to gently touch her hair, he smoothly reveals that the tracking mission was merely a convenient excuse, as he desperately wanted to see her no matter the cost. Deeply confused by his sudden, intense affection, Ashley wonders why he would go to such extreme lengths for her when their past interactions were strictly limited to exchanging brief greetings at formal parties. Gripping the fabric over her racing heart, she is overwhelmed by a sudden, incredibly tight sensation in her chest and desperately questions the terrifying unfamiliarity of this feeling. Radiating an undeniable aura of comfort, the dark-haired man gazes at her with an exceptionally warm, reassuring, and gentle smile. The narrative violently shifts to reveal that a woman possessing the exact same saint's power fled back to her homeland after her divorce out of fear it would be misused, while a man named Royce later discovered Ashley's grandmother during his studies abroad. Outraged by the sheer injustice of her situation, the man furiously demands to know how anyone could possibly dismiss 10 hard years of everything she has done, to which a heartbroken Ashley replies that everyone is already calling her power a complete fake. Forcing a painfully bright, trembling smile through her obvious agony, Ashley tragically admits that her magical abilities are indeed much weaker than Lady Yuana's, yet she still tries to helplessly accept her grim reality. Startled out of her despair by his sudden, commanding intensity, Ashley looks up with wide, intensely vulnerable eyes as he prepares to shatter her misconceptions. He firmly and clinically clarifies that Yuana's power as the summoned Otherworld Saint is fundamentally and categorically different from Ashley's own inherent abilities. Elaborating on the mechanics of their world, he details that Yuana is currently just passively radiating energy, highlighting the bizarre, unique nature of her summoned existence. In stark, tragic contrast, he explains that performing true magic requires a vital resource called mana, and Ashley's brutal years of endless overwork have completely drained her into a severe, crippling deficit. Utterly overwhelmed by his profound and intricate understanding, Ashley marvels at the incredible magical knowledge possessed by the Paysleeve Kingdom, realizing it exists on a completely different, vastly superior level than anything she previously comprehended. He grimly reveals that the mysterious mage who illegally summoned Yuina demanded an enormous price before vanishing without a trace, noting with dark authority that summoning people from other worlds is strictly forbidden magic within Paisleave borders. Cutting through the heavy magical exposition, he calls out her name with a deep, earth-shattering sincerity. With tears shimmering brightly in her exhausted eyes, Ashley looks up with a volatile mix of desperate hope and heartbreaking vulnerability, quietly asking if he truly intends to protect her from the nightmare. He answers with a fierce, unwavering conviction, confessing that safeguarding her is something he has always deeply and desperately desired. Without wasting another breath, he pulls her into a tight, fiercely protective embrace, wrapping his strong arms completely around her fragile, trembling frame. Holding her flush against his chest, he firmly whispers that he wants to be the one standing beside her, completely and utterly replacing the man who caused her such profound suffering. A dark wave of profound regret washes over his features as he bitterly admits he should have acted much sooner, explaining that hearing about this horrific case from Royce was the ultimate catalyst that forced him to finally intervene. A painful memory violently surfaces of a blonde man desperately holding her distressed form, intensely apologizing and expressing his own agonizing regret for not moving to save her earlier. Snapping back to the present moment, Ashley softly and tragically tells the dark-haired man that there is absolutely no need for him to ever apologize for the sins of the past. Utterly overwhelmed by his unexpected, burning warmth, she gazes up into his piercing eyes and quietly asks why he is treating her with such profound, deeply unearned kindness. Heavy, bitter tears rapidly begin to stream down her pale face as she tragically internalizes all the surrounding trauma, falsely declaring that this entire disastrous situation is solely and completely her fault. Sobbing openly and without restraint, she confesses that she pathetically clung to a false peace, desperately believing that if she just quietly endured the endless suffering, her father and mother would eventually love her again. She realizes with a crushing, world-ending clarity that her desperate, lifelong attempts to be the perfect, compliant girl only ended up entirely destroying everything she ever held dear. Stripped completely of her childhood illusions, she admits through her weeping that her truest, simplest desire was only to be free to pursue the beautiful things she genuinely loved. Spiraling rapidly into a dark existential crisis, she viciously questions what being a good girl or being a saint ever actually gave her, wondering aloud what she was even trying to protect in the first place. Burying her tear-soaked face deep in her trembling hands, she unleashes an agonizing, heartbreaking scream into the darkness, utterly devastated that all her years of grueling sacrifice ultimately amounted to absolutely nothing. Slowly, terrifyingly, a deeply broken and almost manic smile spreads across her tear-stained face as a profound, irreversible shift finally occurs within her shattered psyche. Gripping his dark clothes with white-knuckle desperation, she looks up and calls out directly to His Highness, Gilbert, anchoring her newly fractured mind to his imposing presence. Gilbert calmly asks what she needs, and she implores him with a dark urgency to truly listen to the gravity of her next words. Standing tall with a newfound chilling resolve radiating from her core, she declares to Gilbert that she is always the one who pays the price and is entirely done playing the pathetic role of the good girl. Consumed by a beautifully dark and vengeful fury, she vows to personally destroy everything herself, admitting with a brutal, liberating honesty that she utterly hates them all. Tears continue to track down her cheeks, but her expression is now permanently twisted into the chilling, liberated smile of a dangerous woman who has absolutely nothing left to lose. Gilbert stares down at her with a solemn, profoundly serious expression, fully and silently absorbing the sheer magnitude of her magnificent, dark transformation. High outside the opulent window, a bright, razor-sharp crescent moon hangs silently in the night sky over the sprawling, quiet rooftops of the sleeping city. Ashley reaches a slender, trembling hand toward the cold glass of the window, seemingly grasping at the intoxicating thrill of her newly discovered, highly dangerous freedom. Turning back to him with her long hair flowing and a mesmerizing dark allure, she firmly proclaims that she will gladly embrace being the bad one from now on. Highly intrigued by her villainous declaration, Gilbert smoothly asks what her wish is, noting with a predatory edge that in return for his help, she must grant him a desire of his own. Fully acknowledging her terms without a second thought, he calmly agrees to help make her darkest, most destructive wishes an immediate reality. With an intense, predatory focus that burns through the room, he leans in close and bluntly declares that his only real wish is to claim her as his own. Flustered and utterly confused by the surging heat, Ashley touches her blushing cheek, realizing this intense, overwhelming emotion is entirely different from the tame, pathetic feeling she once had for Austin. Despite her romantic confusion, her eyes harden with a terrifyingly cold determination as she decides that if this dark path allows her to crush the people she hates, she is more than willing to walk it. However, her iron resolve falters momentarily as she clutches her aching chest, deeply disturbed by how her erratic heart refuses to settle whenever her thoughts drift to Lord Bart. Ignoring her violent internal conflict, Gilbert gently takes her delicate hand, pressing a tender, fiercely reverent kiss against her pale, yielding skin. Ashley watches his affectionate display with wide, deeply conflicted eyes, completely captivated by the intoxicating, lethal mix of undeniable danger and raw devotion he effortlessly offers. Pulling her body close into a deeply intimate, inescapable embrace, he heavily whispers against her that even if she never comes to love him, he remains fiercely and violently determined to protect her. Gazing deep into her eyes with an unwavering, terrifying resolve, he promises to help her hunt down the rogue mage and explicitly vows to grant her every single vengeful wish. Gazing intently at Ashley, he softly expresses his profound gratitude and thanks her. A soft, willing smile graces Ashley's face as she finally relents and agrees to call him Bart. Staring at her with a remarkably tender expression, he gently urges her to drop the formalities and simply call him Bart. Leaning in closer, he solemnly vows that once her ultimate wish finally comes true, he will be the one standing by her side. He passionately swears to become the unwavering sword and unbreakable shield that will violently guard her against anyone who dares to cause her harm. The narrative flashes back to a younger Ashley who excitedly marvels at the sheer, overwhelming size of Lord Austin's magnificent castle while a long-haired man smiles knowingly behind her. Walking down a breathtakingly grand hallway alongside her companions, she eagerly exclaims her amazement at the opulent surroundings. Coming to a halt, the young Ashley gazes up in pure awe at a massive, beautifully framed portrait depicting a noble couple. A cruel memory echoes as someone generously offers her anything she desires, only to darkly note that soon everything will completely belong to Lady Yuena as well. The long-haired Austin narrows his cold eyes, silently projecting an aura of calculating indifference. Remembering her past tears, Ashley looks up wistfully just as a harsh voice violently shatters the peace, furiously demanding that a nearby portrait be taken down at once. Deep-seated resentment bubbles to the surface as an unseen rival viciously accuses Ashley of feigning humility while secretly looking down on everyone around her. Vicious rumors violently clash in the background, with some damning her as a devil dressed as a saint while others foolishly praise her captivating beauty. Panic briefly erupts in the lavish parlor as someone announces that His Highness Austin has vanished again, prompting a dark, lingering thought to admit a deep-seated hatred for the missing prince. Escaping the suffocating royal environment, Austin quietly realizes with immense relief that he is finally free to wander anywhere by himself. Peeking from the shadows, an observer bitterly notes that the moment Austin starts feeling better, he immediately and selfishly slips away from his duties. A young, wide-eyed Ashley freezes in absolute shock as the crushing reality of Austin's blatant abandonment washes over her. Hidden voices viciously debate the political reality, concluding that Austin cannot possibly survive his illness without Lady Ashley's immense, indispensable power. The memory shifts to a younger, healthier Ashley desperately reaching out to heal a deeply sickly young Austin as he slumps weakly in a large leather chair. The fragile memory violently shatters as a harsh, accusatory voice screams out, branding her a pathetic hypocrite. Snapping back to a tense conversation, an official formally inquires if His Highness Austin is finally showing real signs of physical improvement. Attempting to mask the underlying tension, a servant presents a beautifully arranged tray of sweets and cheerfully suggests they sit down for tea. The summoned saint, Yuena, stands eerily silent, her eyes completely obscured by a heavy, ominous shadow that betrays her innocent facade. A frustrated voice violently cuts through the quiet, demanding they immediately drop all conversation regarding that utterly despised woman. Dropping the ominous act, Yuena bounces joyfully next to a lavish, multi-tiered dessert stand and loudly proclaims her absolute happiness. Taking a sip of her tea, Yuena violently sticks her tongue out in dramatic disgust and openly whines about the incredibly bitter taste. Acting like a spoiled child, she immediately turns and loudly commands the nearby butler to fetch her some sugar to mask the bitterness. Completely abandoning all royal etiquette, she aggressively chugs the sweetened tea with loud, obnoxious gulps while cheering for a bottoms-up finish. Clearly exhausted by her crass behavior, Austin fakes a slight headache and abruptly excuses himself from the room, leaving Yuina to happily stuff her cheeks with a sweet palate cleanser. Walking alone down the quiet corridor, Austin rationalizes Yuina's horrific etiquette by reminding himself that an otherworlder inherently lacks the kingdom's common sense and refined manners. Gripping his clothes in a sudden, violent surge of anxious frustration, Austin desperately tries to convince himself that Ashley wouldn't abandon him just because he selfishly changed his mind about their engagement. His desperate rationalization quickly sours into vicious anger as he clicks his tongue and internally curses Ashley with burning venom. Calculating his political survival, Austin chillingly admits that while Yuina's raw power is sufficient for now, he always intended to ruthlessly keep Ashley chained as a convenient, spare saint. A highly sinister, arrogant smirk twists across Austin's face as he revels in the absolute certainty that this twisted arrangement will guarantee his effortless ascension to the throne. The narrative violently snaps back to the present reality, where a remarkably calm Ashley sits on her bed and announces she has something incredibly important to declare. Sitting perfectly upright in her opulent quarters, Ashley addresses her loyal maid and her stunned brother with an unyielding, icy determination. Her brother softly speaks her name, exchanging a deeply concerned, highly anxious glance with the wide-eyed maid standing beside him. Sensing the profound, irreversible shift in her very soul, he nervously points out that her entire aura feels dangerously and completely different. As her brother pulls her into a deeply apologetic embrace for hiding Prince Gilbert's true identity, Ashley firmly tells the two people she loves most that her pathetic days of playing the good girl are permanently over. Recalling Gilbert's deeply intimate promise, she ruthlessly decides to keep their dark pact a total secret to ensure absolutely nothing hinders her impending, catastrophic revenge. The tender family moment is violently interrupted by a sharp knock, startling the maid and brother as a commanding voice formally requests entry into the room. Stepping out of the shadows as the true crown prince, Gilbert confidently strides into the room holding a bouquet and formally reintroduces himself as Gilbert de Paisleave. He elegantly steps forward, commanding the absolute attention of everyone in the room as he presents his mysterious, shadowy gift. A sharp, resonant snap echoes through the tense air as Gilbert effortlessly channels his immense, terrifying magical power. A massive, breathtaking cluster of pitch-black lilies violently materializes from thin air, swirling with a beautiful, destructive dark energy. Ashley's eyes widen in absolute, transfixed awe as she realizes she is finally witnessing the legendary, awe-inspiring magnitude of Gilbert's personal magic. Dropping gracefully to one knee like a dark knight, Gilbert holds up the stunningly lethal bouquet of black lilies and intensely calls out her name. Staring up at her with a burning, inescapable devotion, he boldly and unapologetically asks if she will marry him. Ashley violently gasps, her pale cheeks immediately flushing with a brilliant, overwhelming crimson as the sheer magnitude of his dark proposal strikes her core. A sudden flashback reveals a highly determined Gilbert explicitly ordering Royce to help him protect Ashley, completely shocking his loyal subordinate with the crown prince's sudden, fierce attachment. Whispering eagerly amongst themselves, the onlookers finally piece together the startling reason why His Highness has mysteriously never taken a fiancé. A solemn voice declares with absolute, unshakable certainty that she will never find true happiness as long as she remains trapped within the oppressive walls of that wretched house. Leaning in with profound, quiet tenderness, Prince Gilbert softly murmurs Ashley's name as he presses a deeply affectionate kiss against her trembling hand. With the intricate stage meticulously set, the only crucial puzzle piece left to uncover is the true, hidden depth of Ashley's feelings. Gazing into her eyes with unwavering, desperate sincerity, the handsome prince earnestly begs her to abandon her past and accompany him to the distant kingdom of Paisleave. Overwhelmed by the heavy weight of his royal request, a tense, breathless silence hangs in the air as hands squeeze tightly together in a desperate search for courage. Trembling with a fragile, intoxicating mix of hope and disbelief, Ashley quietly wonders aloud if she is truly allowed to abandon the suffocating estate that has imprisoned her for so long. Summoning her newfound resolve, she boldly issues a final, non-negotiable ultimatum, declaring she will only leave if her beloved brother Royce and loyal maid Clara are permitted to join her. Breathing a profound sigh of relief, Gilbert instantly and happily accepts her unwavering conditions without a single moment of hesitation. Bursting into joyful, disbelieving tears, Clara and Royce watch in absolute awe as their beloved milady formally aligns herself with the striking prince. Swearing a solemn, ironclad oath to guarantee her safe extraction, Prince Gilbert confidently instructs her to leave the handling of her incredibly toxic parents entirely in his capable hands. Leaving the dark shadows of her past permanently behind, Ashley joyously dashes toward the sparkling horizon, her elegant dress billowing beautifully in the salty ocean breeze. Eager to sever her final physical ties to a restrictive noble life, she casually kicks off her high heels, letting her bare, unburdened feet connect directly with the warm earth. Basking in the splendid, tranquil atmosphere that has blossomed since Gilbert's return, she idly notes that her perpetually unsatisfied parents have scurried off to the castle to whine yet again. Surrendering to the absolute bliss of the perfect moment, she collapses gracefully into a lush meadow, a soft sound of absolute, unbothered contentment escaping her smiling lips. Tilting her head back to absorb the radiant afternoon heat, she marvels with a deeply flushed smile at how the crisp air smells wonderfully and intoxicatingly like pure sunshine. Reaching her slender fingers upward as if to catch the floating motes of glorious light, a gentle, melodic chuckle bubbles up from deep within her chest. Chastising her past blindness, she realizes with stunning clarity that this magnificent freedom was always within her grasp, making her feel like an utter fool for suffering in silence for so long. Suddenly, the peaceful illusion is cleanly shattered when a mysterious, heavy black envelope, sealed tightly with imposing dark wax, is unexpectedly thrust into her hands. With an air of casual, elegant detachment, she lets the foreboding dark letter slip easily through her fingers, watching it flutter lazily through the sunlit air. Exactly 4 tense, incredibly long days pass in total silence outside the grand, sun-drenched architectural facade of the imposing noble estate. A hushed, urgent voice confirms that all the intricate preparations are finally complete, revealing that the decisive correspondence originated directly from Prince Gilbert himself. Maintaining an icy, thoroughly unimpressed facade, Ashley critically analyzes the persistent rumors suggesting the powerful prince has harbored deep romantic feelings for her for quite some time. Stubbornly guarding her heart against dangerous vulnerability, she vehemently rationalizes that he is merely a convenient partner in their mutual contract for revenge, refusing to accept any genuine affection. Sweating profusely under the immense, crushing pressure, her visibly panicked father practically chokes on his own words as he announces that Prince Gilbert has officially demanded her hand in marriage. Rather than responding with the expected, dutiful submission, Ashley simply fixes her terrified father with a chilling, intensely venomous glare of absolute silence. A suffocating, violently uncomfortable tension instantly swallows the lavish dining room, punctuated only by the sharp, echoing clink of expensive silver cutlery against fine porcelain. Frantically attempting to derail the royal arrangement, her horrified, heavily jeweled mother hysterically argues that Ashley has only just recovered from her illness and cannot possibly wed so soon. Weaponizing a deceptively radiant, perfectly innocent smile, Ashley ruthlessly cuts through her mother's desperate panic by cheerfully announcing she would absolutely love to accept the proposal. Brutally dissecting their transparent, hypocritical facade, she mockingly points out that they are only terrified of losing their golden goose because the wealthy nobles are still waiting for her miraculous healing treatments. She calmly and methodically eviscerates their boundless greed, exposing the pathetic truth that their short-term financial extortion matters far more to them than the immense, historical honor of marrying their daughter into foreign royalty. Utterly paralyzed by her sudden, lethal display of spine, both parents sit permanently frozen in a pathetic stupor of absolute shock and impotent, seething rage. Standing tall with an aura of absolute, unshakable sovereignty, she fiercely declares her intention to escape their toxic clutches immediately by eagerly sealing the royal marriage pact. Fixing her trembling abusers with a predatory, unforgiving stare, she coldly spits their own vicious words back at them, reminding them that they frequently branded her as their useless, wholly incompetent daughter. Terrified of losing their wildly lucrative healing monopoly, the pathetic elders instantaneously and shamelessly backtrack, weeping crocodile tears while screeching blatant lies about how much they have always loved their pride and joy. Staring down at their groveling, sweating faces, Ashley openly shudders at the repulsive, hollow echo of their incredibly disgusting and entirely empty words. Sneering at their pathetic display, she admits she wasn't foolish enough to expect much, but is still mildly disgusted that they couldn't even muster the basic decency of a single, genuine apology. Driven entirely by blind, ravenous greed, her father desperately commands her to stay and continue exploiting her saint's power to treat the endless line of paying noblemen just as she always has. Looking at him with eyes as cold as absolute zero, she shatters his pathetic, deeply ingrained delusions of control with a devastating two-word refusal. Their brains spectacularly short-circuiting in real time, the greedy aristocrats freeze like statues, absolutely incapable of processing the shocking reality that their formerly obedient tool just openly defied them. A dark, incredibly cathartic wave of maniacal laughter erupts from Ashley's chest as she realizes with vicious, twisted glee just how delightfully easy it is to finally play the role of the irredeemable villain. Leaning aggressively across the table, she ruthlessly corners them with their own massive financial crimes, exposing the strange paradox that while she never received a single coin, they have been secretly embezzling fortunes from the crown for her royal treatments. The heavy dining room air practically combusts with tension as she drops her final, damning verdict, branding the trembling aristocrats as nothing more than pathetic, parasitic liars. Sweating bullets of sheer, unadulterated terror, her completely unmasked father stammers in a broken, high-pitched voice, frantically demanding to know how she successfully uncovered their highly illegal financial conspiracy. Calling out to them with a terrifyingly calm, borderline mocking sweetness, she forces her utterly defeated parents to finally look their terrible sins directly in the eye. A relentless, deafening cacophony of absolute condemnation shatters the silence as the damning accusation of their endless lies echoes violently through every single corner of the lavish room. Glaring down her nose at the pathetic, sniveling creatures who dared call themselves her family, she icily and rhetorically demands to know which of them is truly the ungrateful parasite. Leaving her father visibly shaking with white-hot, impotent rage, she gleefully twists the knife, admitting that this royal proposal is nothing more than her ultimate, spiteful ticket away from the two people she absolutely loathes. Smiling with a vicious, triumphant glow of pure victory, she boldly proclaims just how intensely glad she is that the powerful prince finally intervened to ask for her hand in marriage. Delivering her final, masterful psychological blow, she dares them to do their absolute worst, mockingly asking if they intend to cowardly strike her again for her open, unrepentant disobedience. Enraged by her sudden, unapologetic defiance, a furious voice screams out in absolute, desperate frustration. Staring down at the pathetic display, she notes how incredibly anticlimactic the long-awaited confrontation feels, yet she remains entirely resolute in her decision. A low, humiliated groan escapes from the floor as the crushing, undeniable weight of their complete defeat finally takes hold. Turning her back on the toxic household with absolute finality, she calmly states that she has nothing left to say and coldly thanks them for their past. Stepping away from the suffocating estate, a profound, intoxicating sense of liberation washes over her as she realizes the incredible power of simply speaking her mind. Unbeknownst to their completely oblivious parents, her brother Royce has successfully mastered fire magic and transferred to their grandmother's family registry to eventually serve as Prince Gilbert's royal aide. Addicted to their lavish lifestyle, the deeply corrupt parents inevitably squander their remaining wealth in record time, ensuring the spectacular and irreversible downfall of House Elnett. Gently checking on her emotional well-being, Prince Gilbert tenderly reminds her that he had specifically instructed her not to push herself while he handled the messy extraction. Gripping her heavy traveling suitcase tightly, she casts one final, beautifully emotionless glance over her shoulder before walking away toward her new life. Flashing a breathtakingly radiant smile, she happily declares to the prince that she is currently experiencing the absolute time of her life. Meanwhile, excited murmurs violently ripple through high society as ecstatic, gossiping nobles eagerly circulate the scandalous news of Lady Ashley's royal engagement. The chattering aristocrats enthusiastically swap rumors about her intimidating groom, noting that while he resembles a terrifying demon, his unmatched magical prowess makes him fiercely desirable. Festering in bitter, overwhelming resentment, Lord Austen curses the prince's name, angrily recalling how Gilbert constantly reprimanded him for mistreating his former fiancée. Clinging desperately to her own delusional fantasy, a smug Euna frantically tries to reassure herself that she and Lord Austen still make the absolute perfect couple. Narrowing his eyes with intense, venomous jealousy, Austen silently fumes, wondering if Ashley's high-profile engagement to his greatest rival is an elaborate, spiteful form of revenge. The tense, aristocratic atmosphere shatters violently when Lord Austen suddenly doubles over in sheer agony, hacking up a vicious cough while Euna shrieks in absolute terror. Clutching his chest in desperate, agonizing confusion, Austen wheezes that a terrible burning sensation is tearing through his lungs, even though Euna supposedly just healed his affliction. Completely incompetent and entirely out of her depth, A visibly panicking Yuina weakly suggests that her dying lover might simply have caught a minor cold. Showing her true, incredibly cowardly colors, Yuina immediately fabricates a pathetic excuse about missing a tea party and hastily flees the room to save her own reputation. Without Ashley's genuine saint magic to protect the nobility, the terrifying reality of the kingdom's medical crisis violently manifests as suffering patients are left agonizingly gasping for breath. Staring wide-eyed in absolute, paralyzed horror, the fake healer violently hyperventilates as the undeniable weight of her catastrophic incompetence finally crashes down upon her. Trembling uncontrollably as her stolen, fraudulent status crumbles to dust, she frantically whispers to herself, desperately refusing to accept that her fake healing powers have completely failed. Yuina excitedly cheers that there are only 2 months remaining until their engagement party. Enjoying tea, she cheerfully reminds Lord Austen to make sure he prepares the most gorgeous dress for her. Austen thinks to himself that he first needs to cure his illness to be truly sure of Yuina's healing power. He mentions inviting Ashley and the others to the engagement party so they can witness how happy he and Yuina are. Count Roop enters Austen's bedroom and formally congratulates him on the engagement. The scene shifts to the imposing halls of the Royal Infirmary. Roop asks about Yuina's treatment, and Austen replies that it feels much more effective than Lady Ashley's past efforts. Austen happily adds that thanks to Yuina, he can actually sleep at night now. Roop observes that Lady Ashley used to treat so many people she couldn't even leave the house, making the difference in their healing unsurprising. Surprised by this unexpected information, Austen utters a confused sound. Austen states he was told Ashley simply hated socializing and kept herself locked away on purpose. Roop solemnly corrects him, revealing the dark truth that Ashley was actually being used to fill Duke Elnat's pockets. Shocked, Austen protests that his parents told him differently, but Roop explains they couldn't speak up even when false rumors spread. Roop laments that people did awful things to Lady Ashley just to get treated by her. The Count tearfully recalls sneaking her sweets and books, noting how incredibly happy even those small gestures made her. Overwhelmed by the revelation, Austen listens as Roop passionately declares he just wants Lady Ashley to be happy. Austen remembers the harsh gossip, recalling whispers that Ashley ditched him and hated society while he stood all alone at a party. He vividly remembers the nobles pitying him and calling Ashley awful behind her back. Someone gently pats a distressed Austen on the shoulder, calling his name to break him out of his thoughts. The king advises a young Austen to get some rest and not think about the difficult situation too much. Austen realizes he never knew Ashley suffered such harsh treatment at House Elnat, completely contradicting his parents' claims. Suddenly, a sharp pain strikes Austen as he stumbles through the halls and collapses with a heavy thud. A worried woman calls out for Yuina in a panic as they rush to the fallen prince's side. Collapsed on the floor, someone desperately asks what is wrong as Austen groans in agony. Barely conscious, Austen weakly begs for someone to hurry and heal him. A panicked Yuina quickly complies and agrees to initiate the treatment. Magic rushes forth with a loud swoosh as she channels her power. Sweating profusely, Austen sighs in relief, noting that the magic makes him feel a little better. Yuina abruptly announces she is done, leaving Austen visibly stunned by the short session. Disbelieving and frustrated, Austen snaps at her, asking if she is kidding him. He demands she focus harder and perform the healing magic just like she always does. A trembling Yuina insists she is doing it exactly as she always does. Austen angrily points out the problem, stating his pain and tightness persist even after returning from official duties. Yuina cries out that all he ever does is demand she do it better. Tears streaming down her face, she screams that she is trying so hard. She breaks down, sobbing that she is sick of the endless daily cycle of barrier practice, healing and studying. Wailing for her parents, Yuina desperately cries that she just wants to go home. Clutching his chest in agony, Austen groans and mutters that he is the one who truly wants to cry right now. Yuina refuses to be treated like a tool and yells that everyone bosses her around, prompting Austen to apologize for panicking and pushing her too far. Austen winces as a sharp crack of pain violently interrupts the tense argument. Under his breath, a deeply frustrated Austen angrily curses her as a stupid girl. Startled by his sudden hostility, Yuina gasps in genuine fear. Fleeing to her room, she cries that this wasn't how things were supposed to go, completely ignoring Austen's pleas to wait. Later, a doctor explains that Yuina's power starts strong but gradually weakens, revealing shocking information after surveying patients. The doctor warns that lately, even the barrier has been broken by monsters sometimes, leaving Austin horrified at how dire things have become. Desperate, Austin insists there must be a way to find other magic users since healing magic is basically a miracle. The doctor solemnly reminds him that their options are extremely limited, as finding anyone who can use magic in their kingdom is incredibly rare. Clutching his chest, a terrified Austin wonders what will happen to his life if this condition keeps deteriorating. Approaching Yuna's room, Austin reasons that even weak power is better than nothing and tells himself he must keep her happy as he announces her party dress is ready. Yuna gasps at the gorgeous, custom-dyed blue dress, completely captivated by its beauty and forgetting her earlier tears. Clutching a glittering treasure, a young girl whined that she desperately wanted the accessories to be pink. A stressed, blonde-haired man grumbled that his life was on the line, annoyed that he was stuck buying jewels, sweets, and other crap just to keep her happy. He realized he had been trying not to think about Ashley, but her memory kept crossing his mind, remembering how she was always smiling and tirelessly healing him as a perfectly trained future queen. His eyes narrowed as the bitter truth settled in, confirming that her marriage to Bart had really happened. A flashback transported him to the royal court last month, where nobles gathered to mingle in the grand hall. A dark-haired man named Bart recounted how he had already heard about Ashley from Royce, since they were in the same class at the academy, adding that he thought it was incredible when she healed him after he got hurt at that party. Watching from the doorway, the blonde man felt completely sick as Bart cheerfully declared how genuinely happy he was to marry her. Seething with frustration, he convinced himself that Ashley was wrong for not saying anything and that if they were just using someone as a tool, she should have asked for help, insisting he would have totally listened. Meanwhile, a radiant Ashley stood beside Bart, both of them beaming with joy. Refusing to be outdone, the blonde man gritted his teeth and vowed to make sure his own party was a success, no matter what it took. With unresolved problems continuously piling up, the day of the engagement party finally arrived, prompting him to frantically ask Yuna what was wrong when she turned to him in shock. Twirling in an amazing dress that made her feel like a storybook heroine, a thrilled Yuna squealed with happiness while the blonde man forced a smile and complimented her truly beautiful appearance. The narrative revealed it was a bitter choice, but they had paid another fortune to summon the sorcerer who brought Yuna here, leaving her completely oblivious to the fact that the saint's power was actively fading. Leaning in close, he sternly warned Yuna that she absolutely could not screw up today, desperately muttering that he just needed this party to go well. 30 minutes later, a completely wiped-out Yuna slumped in exhaustion, whining that she was tired and wanted to sit down. As he angrily ordered her to get it together because the situation was humiliating, the grand doors suddenly slammed open. Bart stepped into the hall, escorting a stunning Ashley who dramatically gripped the skirt of her elegant black dress. The nobles fell silent as the couple descended the stairs, their synchronized footsteps clicking sharply against the polished floor. Gripping the balcony railing in absolute shock, the blonde man stared wide-eyed and stammered as he recognized Ashley. Glaring down at the crowd with a dark, confident smirk, she looked exactly like a real witch. Stepping forward smoothly, Bart requested that they accept his sincerest congratulations on their engagement. The heavy silence in the room stretched out as he delivered his final word of congratulations. The scene shifted to 2 months before Austin's engagement party in the kingdom of Paisleave, where a patient joyfully exclaimed that his pain was completely gone. A wounded soldier gazed up in awe, calling Lady Ashley a true goddess, overwhelmed that Her Majesty the Queen would personally heal someone like him. A maid entered the bright room, gently calling out to Lady Ashley. Smiling warmly at her patient, Ashley insisted that helping the people protecting their country was more than enough reward for her. Her brother arrived and gently advised her not to overexert herself on her morning rounds, suggesting they should finally return to the castle. Looking out over the sprawling, sunlit city, Ashley reflected on the profound sense of freedom she felt there, admitting how deeply she loved the kingdom of Paisleave. Waving cheerfully to the people who welcomed her with gratitude at the royal sanatorium, she couldn't help but wonder if she was really allowed to be this happy. Later that night, under the glow of a full moon, Ashley sat closely entwined with Bart on their grand bed. Leaning his head affectionately against hers, Bart confessed that having her by his side still felt like a dream. He gently teased her, noting that being around someone so perfect could make a person forget themselves easily. As he kissed her forehead, Ashley thought about how sweet Bart always was, but admitted to herself that she still couldn't figure out what he was really thinking. A shadow crossed her mind as she fearfully wondered what would happen if he eventually betrayed her too. Touching her own face with a hollow expression, she convinced herself there was no way someone like her could truly be loved. Dark flashbacks of being called a useless piece of trash surged through her mind, proving that even when she was happy, the deep-seated hatred never disappeared. Cupping Bart's face in the dark room, she hardened her resolve and swore she wouldn't waver until she finally got her revenge. Bart gazed down at her with unwavering devotion, softly calling her his goddess once again. Catching her chin, he playfully noted that no goddess spends all her time plotting revenge and asked if there was something specific he could do for her. Staring at wilting black roses, they discussed how Yuina's weakening saint powers were causing Austin and the kingdom of Salveri to rapidly fall apart. Pulling her into his lap with a dark chuckle, Bart said he had an idea, promising that if she couldn't be happy until she got her revenge, he would gladly help her achieve it. Smiling wickedly up at him, Ashley declared that she absolutely couldn't wait for Lord Austin's engagement party. Her expression softening into genuine affection, she reached up and admitted that she really did like him. Holding her face tenderly, Bart replied that he loved her too, with absolutely everything he had. They pulled each other close, sharing a deep and passionate kiss by the moonlit window. Parting slightly to catch his breath, Bart promised her that as long as they were together, everything was going to work out fine. The narrative snapped back to the present, questioning the audacity of showing up to the engagement announcement party in such a dark color. Dismissing the whispers about coordinating couples, Bart casually claimed he just wanted to make his adorable wife happy. He smugly explained that since it was his first public appearance since marrying Ashley, he simply couldn't refuse when she asked to match her dress to his hair and eyes. Turning to a visibly tense Austin, Bart confidently asked his wife to confirm the story. With a chillingly sweet smile, Ashley wished them both the very best from the bottom of her heart. Overjoyed and completely oblivious to the tension, Yuina clasped her hands and exclaimed that Ashley looked almost frighteningly beautiful today. Bart smoothly thanked Lady Yuina for her remarkably kind words about his beloved wife, causing the flustered girl to frantically clarify that she meant her statement in a good way. While a deeply apologetic Yuina stammered out her nervous regrets to Ashley, a visibly irritated Austin forced himself to compliment Prince Bart's wonderful appearance, which Bart cheerfully and smugly accepted. Beaming with a radiant, confident joy, Ashley reassured Lady Yuina not to worry about the awkward exchange, proudly declaring that leaving the kingdom of Salveri to be loved by Prince Bart made her incredibly happy and deeply grateful. Austin ground his teeth in a dark, simmering fury at her bold declaration of happiness, snapping to startled attention when an energetic Yuina suddenly called out to Lady Ashley. Completely oblivious to the heavy, suffocating tension between the royals, Yuina turned to Prince Austin and enthusiastically announced that she absolutely could not wait to see their first dance together. Stepping back gracefully in her sweeping black dress, Ashley simply closed her eyes and calmly murmured, "Well then." A look of pure, panicked shock crossed Austin's face as he repeated the word, "dance," leaving an innocent Yuina utterly confused by his bizarre and stressed reaction. Feigning innocent regret, Ashley delicately covered her mouth and apologized for her supposed slip-up, mockingly pointing out that Yuina actually did not know how to dance, which caused Austin to sweat nervously as his secret was exposed. Tears of humiliation welling in her large eyes, a devastated Yuina loudly demanded to know why Austin had not told her about the customary dance, prompting a deeply apologetic and flustered Austin to try and soothe his panicked fiancée. Losing the last shred of his strained patience, Austin harshly scolded Yuina for constantly complaining about being tired all the time, causing her to wail miserably that she would have practiced to dance with him if he had just told her the truth. Stepping smoothly into the center of the chaotic, embarrassing argument, Bart coolly offered his hand and asked his stunning wife if she would like to dance instead. The surrounding nobles erupted in bewildered, hushed whispers, entirely convinced that Prince Bart, who had never taken a fiancée, and Ashley, who rarely ever attended balls, could not possibly know how to actually dance. Sneering with arrogant, misplaced confidence, Austin urged the visiting couple to go ahead and make absolute fools of themselves just to liven things up, casually mentioning he had been considering canceling the dance anyway despite it being his big, defining moment. Ignoring Austin's confident, mocking assumption that she would refuse the offer, Ashley happily accepted Bart's extended hand, declaring that being able to dance together in such a wonderful place was truly a dream come true. As he guided Ashley toward the center floor, Bart shot a highly patronizing glance over his shoulder and smoothly advised a rather unwell-looking Austin not to push himself too much. Driving the final, agonizing nail into Austin's bruised ego, Bart sincerely thanked the furious prince, smoothly declaring that thanks to Ashley, he could experience genuine happiness every single day. Austin's eye twitched in humiliated rage and silent despair as Bart calmly excused himself and walked away to claim the spotlight. Taking the absolute center of the grand, glittering ballroom, Bart and Ashley flawlessly locked eyes and fell into a perfect, breathtakingly elegant dance step. The surrounding nobles watched in breathless, captivated awe as the dark-clad couple commanded the entire floor with their undeniable, magnetic chemistry. Watching furiously from the sidelines with a bitter, twisted scowl, Austin ground his teeth and enviously thought that he should have been the one out there dancing. As the stunning couple twirled gracefully through the opulent room, the awestruck onlookers realized this majestic, flawless display had effectively turned into Prince Bart's grand debut. Leaving the suffocating, crowded ballroom behind, Bart and Ashley slipped out through the grand double doors and strolled quietly into the serene, moonlit garden path. Their peaceful, romantic retreat was abruptly interrupted when a frantic, high-pitched voice desperately called out for Prince Bart and Lady Ashley from the manor's open doorway. Sprinting up to the couple and panting heavily from exertion, Yuena praised their breathtaking dance, and despite Bart reminding her she had important guests to greet, she insisted there was something she urgently needed to ask Ashley. Trembling slightly in the cool night air, Yuena nervously pointed out that even though Ashley was physically weaker, they both possessed the exact same magical power. Staring back with an unreadable, perfectly calm expression, Ashley simply nodded and confirmed that Yuena's terrifying assumption was entirely correct. Spiraling into a full panic, Yuena revealed that her magic was rapidly weakening, desperately asking Ashley what she did in such a situation because Lord Austin had coldly distanced himself from her as a result. Looking down at the frightened, trembling girl with cold, detached pity, Ashley remarked on how awful the situation was for poor Lady Yuena, internally musing that the inevitable, tragic betrayal had happened after all. Wide-eyed and utterly terrified, Yuena demanded to know if Ashley was hiding some dark secret, prompting Ashley to cruelly point out that the royals really had not told the poor girl anything about her true purpose. With a detached, sorrowful tone that carried years of hidden pain, Ashley softly explained that being kept entirely in the dark and used as a tool was exactly how it had always been for her as well. Sensing the heavy, suffocating burden of her painful memories surfacing, Bart stepped closer and protectively wrapped his arm around Ashley's trembling shoulders. Completely desperate and lost in the dark shadows of the garden, Yuena begged Ashley to explain what was happening and what this terrifying secret truly meant for her future. Holding Ashley tightly against his warm chest, Bart gently intervened and softly told her that she did not need to say anything more to the trembling girl. Tears streaming down her porcelain face, Ashley confessed that being betrayed by those she gave absolutely everything to would have completely shattered her fragile heart if she had not found Bart. While Bart embraced Ashley and gently urged her to leave the bitter past behind them, a horrified Yuena clutched her dress and fearfully wondered if she was destined to end up suffering the exact same tragic fate. Ashley's mind drifted back to the deceptive beginning, vividly recalling how incredibly sweet Lord Austin had been to her at first, always going out of his way to shower her with endless, suffocating praise. Her expression hardened as she remembered the sharp sting of being casually thrown away the very moment her power weakened, noting how his sweet, loving words had coldly shifted to strict, demanding orders to focus on treatment or get an education. The ultimate, crushing betrayal echoed loudly in her memory, recalling the exact moment a disgusted Austin had cruelly branded her a fake saint and violently ordered her to get away from him. Overwhelmed by the dark, inescapable reality of her impending doom, Yuena's eyes dilated in absolute terror as she screamed that she could not handle this horrific fate and desperately did not want it. Sobbing uncontrollably into the quiet night, Yuena desperately apologized to Ashley, confessing that her previous, malicious claims about Ashley tricking her had been nothing but a complete, fabricated lie. Bawling her eyes out in front of the stoic, unmoving couple, Yuena admitted that Lady Ashley was completely innocent and did absolutely nothing wrong, loudly crying that she was the one who was truly, deeply wronged by the kingdom. Staring blankly at the weeping, broken girl, Ashley calmly stated that besides all the lies and manipulation, she had eventually realized a terrifying, inescapable truth one day. Regaining her elegant, aristocratic composure after the emotional surge, Ashley gently apologized for losing her cool during the intense confrontation. Looking deeply into her own trembling hands, Ashley finally revealed the dark, closely guarded secret of the saint's magic, explaining that this miraculous healing power actually uses the user's own physical body as fuel. As Yuena gasped in sheer, unadulterated horror at the revelation, Ashley firmly declared that she intended to dedicate her remaining, precious time solely to Prince Bart and the Kingdom of Paisleave. the devastating, lethal truth finally clicked in Yuna's terrified mind, and she stepped forward in sheer shock, realizing that remaining time actually meant her very lifespan was rapidly running out. The wind howled loudly through the dark, isolating the garden as Ashley's hollow, exhausted eyes stared ahead, silently acknowledging that this divine, cursed power was actively consuming her from the inside out. Austin's sharp, demanding voice suddenly echoed through the garden shadows, calling out for Yuna, leaving the trembling girl to realize with absolute, paralyzing dread what would inevitably happen to her in the end if she fully became like Lady Ashley. Emerging from the oppressive shadows, a figure finally locates their elusive target with a chillingly possessive declaration. The newcomer swiftly embraces the trembling girl, immediately alarmed by how freezing cold her fragile body has become. Internally spiraling into despair, Yuna bitterly realizes that this sudden display of kindness is merely a selfish manipulation designed to exploit her powers. Pushing him away with a sudden surge of resolute defiance, Yuna coldly informs Lord Austin that her well-being is entirely out of his jurisdiction. Stunned by her harsh rejection, an increasingly desperate Austin frantically demands to know if another woman dared to poison Yuna's mind against him. Flashing a strained, frantic smile, Austin desperately urges Yuna to ignore those shameless accusations and simply remain faithfully by his side. Lowering her gaze in quiet devastation, Yuna firmly concludes that Lady Ashley was the absolute only person who genuinely worried and cared for her. Trembling with indignant fury, Yuna fiercely defends Lady Ashley's innocence and vehemently demands that Austin cease his cruel mockery. Aghast at this sudden, explosive rebellion, Austin stammers in sheer disbelief as he demands to know exactly what lies Ashley has planted in Yuna's head. A vivid memory violently resurfaces of Lady Ashley gently grasping Yuna's hands, desperately begging the young woman to take better care of herself. In that haunting flashback, Ashley presses a delicate finger to her lips, darkly warning Yuna to stay completely silent if she wishes to avoid a similarly tragic fate. Consumed by paranoid realization, Yuna internally declares that a lying Lord Austin is merely using her as a tool while keeping her entirely in the dark. Startled by her abrupt, fearful flinch as he reaches out, an unsettled Austin gently attempts to guide the terrified Yuna back inside the manor for now. Yanking herself free from his suffocating grasp, an exhausted Yuna firmly turns her back and announces her immediate retreat to the safety of her private room. Chasing helplessly after her retreating form, Austin frantically begs Yuna to return to the hall to finish their remaining social greetings. Hitching up her elegant skirts to flee across the moonlit courtyard, Yuna flatly refuses his desperate pleas while he cries out her name in agonizing despair. Racing away with hot tears welling in her eyes, the desperate girl violently yearns to escape this gilded cage and return permanently to her old world. Meanwhile, back inside the glittering ballroom, oblivious noblewomen excitedly gossip about how utterly captivated they were by Prince Bart and Lady Ashley's divine dance. Eavesdropping from the darkened fringes of the grand hall, a seething Austin bitterly reflects on his monumental failure to permanently get rid of her. Glaring into the void with unrestrained malice, the frustrated lord vows that he will absolutely never allow that wretched woman to ruin his plans. Far away from the suffocating tension of the noble estate, a luxurious horse-drawn carriage quietly rattles along a secluded, fog-draped forest path. Inside the dimly lit cabin, Gilbert gazes with intense, unwavering concern at Ashley, who is hiding her face entirely behind trembling hands. Ashley's delicate shoulders shake violently as she lets out a muffled sniffle, seemingly overcome by a sudden wave of turbulent, uncontrollable emotions. Pulling her into a comforting, protective embrace on the plush seating, Gilbert tenderly suggests that it is finally safe for her to stop holding back her feelings. Dropping the fragile facade entirely, Ashley peeks through her fingers with a wicked smirk before erupting into a fit of triumphant, villainous laughter. Wiping away tears of pure, malicious mirth, Ashley half-heartedly apologizes for enjoying the chaos a little too much while Gilbert looks on with an amused smile. Gently caressing her cheek, Gilbert marvels at how flawlessly their deceptive scheme unfolded, drawing a delighted, conspiring giggle from his cunning partner. Gilbert coldly notes that Austin's relationship with Yuna is already tearing at the seams, a fitting punishment for cruelly discarding Ashley, especially now that Austin's illness has returned and Yuna's magic is fading. Casting her gaze downward with a mockingly feigned expression of pity, Ashley muses that she almost feels a twisted sense of sorrow for the naive Lady Yuna. Tapping her chin with an elegant, gloved finger, Ashley practically beams as she proudly admits this is her first time pulling such a magnificent, prank-like lie on someone. Gilbert praises her masterful deception, noting that while healing magic does not shorten a lifespan, framing it vaguely as a dangerous sacrifice left the terrifying implications up to their enemies' imaginations. Calculating their next strategic move, Gilbert predicts that Austen will desperately contact the sorcerer again, allowing them to finally flush out King Salveri and his hidden conspirators. Shifting the heavy conversation away from the king, Gilbert curiously presses Ashley on whether she has finalized her cruel intentions regarding Yuna's impending fate. Staring ahead with cold, unwavering resolve, Ashley firmly confirms that she will execute the unforgiving plan regarding Yuna, knowing she will never be satisfied otherwise. Gazing at her with deep, intoxicating affection, Gilbert promises to discuss their future at the castle before earnestly asking for her true love, which she immediately and happily guarantees. Flushed by her quick, breathless confession, a slightly flustered Ashley playfully chastises Gilbert for being such a relentless and charming tease. Gently tilting her chin upward to meet his intense gaze, Gilbert confidently vows that he has absolutely no intention of giving up on her. Pausing the thick romantic tension, a suddenly serious Gilbert leans in closely and admits he has a crucial, highly personal favor to ask of her. Revealing that he has secured an extended leave of absence, he excitedly proposes that they travel somewhere remote together to celebrate their impending marriage. Meanwhile, back within the suffocating, lonely walls of the Grand Castle, a despondent Yuna curls up miserably on her lavish canopy bed. Peering sadly through the thick, impenetrable window panes, she shifts uncomfortably and laments that this opulent room feels exactly like a cold, inescapable prison. Hot tears begin to well in her eyes as she angrily struggles to believe that Lord Austen would heartlessly force her to repeatedly heal people while knowingly draining her life force. Gripped by paralyzing terror, Yuna shakes her head violently, utterly terrified that at this destructive rate, she will inevitably share Lady Ashley's tragic fate. Utterly breaking down under the immense psychological pressure, she bawls openly and screams out a desperate, childish plea to just go home. Burying her tear-streaked face deeply into the plush mattress, Yuna violently rejects her gilded cage, sobbing that she no longer wants or needs this superficial princess life. An agonizing hallucination of her modern-day parents flashes through her mind, intensifying her unbearable heartache as she desperately cries out for her mother and father. Reaching a trembling, fragile hand toward the cold glass of her bedroom window, she whispers a final, broken plea for salvation into the silent night. Suddenly gasping in sheer shock, Yuna recoils from the glass as she begs God for an immediate, impossible miracle to rescue her from this waking nightmare. Sniffling in bewildered confusion, she watches in utter disbelief as dark rose petals miraculously begin fluttering into her securely locked room out of thin air. Catching a beautifully impossible black rose and a heavy, sealed letter as they drift downward, a stunned Yuna questions how such items could enter when the window remains firmly shut. Startled by a sudden manifestation, a tearful Yuna questions if the sealed letter appearing before her is the work of magic. Clutching the mysterious, cipher-filled parchment to her chest, she beams with overwhelming gratitude and tearfully thanks Lady Ashley. Back at the Grand Manor, a heavy thud echoes as Lord Austen collapses onto the ornate floor. Thrashing wildly in a furious tantrum, Austen violently kicks a fallen chair while screaming that this is the absolute worst. Screaming in unhinged agony, he furiously demands to know why Ashley and Yuna refuse to obey him and curses them for being so utterly useless. Exhausted by his explosive outburst, the desperate lord violently pants for breath as cold sweat drips down his face. Dragging his weakened body across the carpet, Austen bitterly realizes that even the royal physician's treatments have reached their absolute limits. Clawing his way toward the bed frame, he desperately mutters that he needs Yuna to treat his failing body immediately. Resigned to his grim reality, he admits he abandoned his own medical research long ago because only the Saintess's power can save him. Bursting through the doors in a sheer panic, Lord Cargo interrupts Austen's venomous muttering about demons masquerading as good people. Whipping his head around with terrified urgency, a sweating Austen instantly demands to know if Yuna has caused trouble again. Trembling before the bedridden lord, a terrified Cargo stammers out Lady Yuna's name while declaring a terrible disaster. The frantic physician reveals that the Saintess has completely vanished, leaving Austen to scream out in sheer, panicked disbelief. Staring at a crisp note left behind, Austen realizes the horrifying truth that his only lifeline has escaped. A dark, broken chuckle escapes his lips as his mind violently snaps under the weight of his total ruin. The quiet chuckling rapidly escalates into a deranged, terrifying cackle as his eyes widen with absolute madness. Tearing the bedroom apart in a blind rage, he curses the damned saintess for abandoning him after everything he supposedly did for her. Freezing with a sudden, manic epiphany, Austin breathlessly decides that he will force Ashley to take full responsibility for this disaster. Flashing a terrifying, desperate grin, he convinces himself that she will gladly listen if he just speaks to her directly. Storming down the moonlit corridor with renewed, terrifying purpose, he orders his staff to prepare for an immediate departure to Paisley at dawn. Miles away from the chaos, a beautifully dressed Ashley leans against a balcony railing and peacefully admires the breathtaking ocean view. Staring out at the shimmering water, she marvels at the profound freedom of finally being able to go anywhere she desires. Stepping up behind her, Gilbert tenderly drapes his coat over her shoulders and notes the chilly ocean breeze. Pulling her securely against his chest, he gently asks if the extra layer helps warm her up, earning a soft murmur of gratitude. Leaning comfortably into his embrace, she confirms that his protective warmth helps her very much. Flashing a serene smile, she remarks that the ocean truly calms her heart while he affectionately asks about her first time seeing it. Resting his chin near her shoulder, Gilbert smiles warmly and tells her how genuinely glad he is that she is enjoying the trip. Ashley blushes deeply, internally confessing that just hearing him call her name makes her heart race during this idyllic honeymoon. Her expression darkens slightly as guilt creeps in, reminding her that she shouldn't feel such genuine joy while using him for her revenge. Turning to face him, she hesitates, caught in a turbulent internal battle between her dark mission and her blossoming feelings. Bewildered by his sudden affection, she asks what he is doing as he gently reaches out to stroke her hair. Smiling tenderly, he explains he simply wanted to touch her hair, reminding her once again that she is absolutely beautiful. A heavy sorrow fills her heart as she silently condemns herself for being utterly tainted and staining her own hands with vengeance. Rejecting his earnest praise, she solemnly looks away and insists that she is not a beautiful person at all. Gazing at her with unwavering devotion, Gilbert firmly commands her to stop, swearing from the bottom of his heart that he means every word. Struck by his profound sincerity, Ashley looks back at him with wide, shimmering eyes full of unspoken emotion. Covering her trembling lips, she fiercely promises herself that she will absolutely not cry until her revenge is finally complete. Sensing her internal turmoil, Gilbert suddenly leans in and captures her lips in a deep, passionate kiss. They linger in the quiet embrace, sharing a breathless, tender moment against the backdrop of the crashing waves. Pulling away with a flushed, panicked gasp, Ashley flusteredly complains that the kiss lasted far too long while he playfully apologizes. He teases that her pouting is adorable, making her desperately wish she could just stop caring and completely sink into this newfound happiness. Staring deeply into his eyes, she feels her dark resolve dangerously wavering as she wonders if she could just abandon her revenge entirely. Suddenly, a phantom, terrifying voice echoes through her mind, mockingly asking if she plans to go back to being a submissive good girl. Her heart thumps violently in her chest as the dark hallucination sneers her name and commands her to fall back into line. The warmth instantly drains from her face, leaving a cold, hollow stare as her grim reality forcefully anchors her back to the present. Noticing the sudden, heavy shift in her demeanor, Gilbert gently suggests they take a relaxing stroll down by the sea. Holding hands in companionable silence, the pair walk slowly along the shoreline as the tide washes over the white sand. Gazing out at the majestic horizon, Gilbert softly agrees with her earlier sentiment that the view is undeniably beautiful. Pausing his steps in the damp sand, a serious, contemplative silence falls over him. Turning to face her with a solemn expression, Gilbert gently announces that there is something incredibly important he needs to tell her. Staring closely at his unusually stiff expression, she realized with mild surprise that she had never seen him look so deeply nervous before. Standing in silhouette by the tranquil sea, he hesitated to speak while her heart gave an anxious, heavy thump. Averting his gaze in obvious embarrassment, he finally confessed that he was actually not a very good swimmer. Eager to please her, he earnestly promised to overcome his weakness if she just gave him a little time to prepare. Startled by his sudden, intense dedication, she merely uttered a confused sound. Unable to hold back her amusement, she covered her mouth and burst into cheerful, ringing laughter at his unexpected vulnerability. Smiling warmly, she admitted her relief at finding out that even the remarkably capable Gilbert possessed a weakness. Chuckling softly, she revealed that she couldn't swim either and therefore had no intention of going into the water. Gazing affectionately at her joyous expression, Gilbert smoothly remarked that he was entirely glad he couldn't swim if it meant seeing her smile like that. Caught completely off guard by his sudden romantic sincerity, a deep blush rushed to her cheeks as she softly gasped. Staring dreamily into the distance, she quietly mused to herself that she would undoubtedly remain happy as long as she stayed by Gilbert's side. A grand, multi-story manor sat silently against the tranquil backdrop of the dark, rippling ocean. A mysterious black envelope, sealed tightly with crimson wax, was carefully handed over amidst a somber flurry of falling dark petals. Interrupting her quiet tea time, Gilbert confidently announced that his men had finally caught the elusive sorcerer. Shocked by the sudden news, she immediately wondered aloud what this meant for Lady Yuina's fate. Gilbert explained that by unlawfully utilizing the forbidden spell once more, the sorcerers had seemingly succeeded in sending Yuina back to her original world. Processing the heavy news with a completely calm expression, she murmured her understanding of the complex situation. Observing her gentle reaction, Gilbert smiled softly and praised her inherent, boundless kindness. Stirring her tea with a dark, bitter expression, she firmly rejected his compliment by stating she wasn't kind at all. She coldly thought to herself that Lord Austen was now completely ruined and mentally bid a final, permanent farewell to Lady Yuina. Banging his fists in absolute fury, the young prince of the Salvary kingdom screamed at the palace guards, demanding to meet Ashley at once. The stern guard firmly explained that without a formal appointment, absolutely no one could meet with the crown princess. Desperate and shouting, the frantic young man argued that he deserved immediate entry because he was her former fiancé. Interrupting the incredibly tense standoff at the gates, the massive heavy doors groaned loudly as they slowly began to swing open. A regal, commanding voice echoed from within, formally welcoming the uninvited, hostile guests to the kingdom of Paisley. The unseen speaker coldly agreed to hear exactly what they had to say. Glaring upward with intense, unrestrained hostility, the disgraced young prince fiercely spat out Ashley's name. Gazing down with absolute, icy indifference, Ashley noted that she had heard a loud commotion. She showed absolutely no surprise upon realizing the pathetic source of the disturbance was her former fiancé. With elegant, sweeping movements of her dark gown, Ashley gracefully took her seat upon the grand throne right beside a silent Gilbert. Looking up at the intimidating, powerful couple on the thrones, the desperate royal parents nervously called out to Ashley. Cutting through the heavy tension, a harsh voice commanded them to be entirely blunt with their pathetic request. Trembling with overwhelming desperation and shedding her royal dignity, the older woman shouted a frantic demand for Ashley to heal Austen. Sweating profusely and visibly panicked, the disgraced king and queen begged Ashley to lend her immense power to treat their afflicted son. Flashing a chillingly polite, empty smile, Ashley feigned complete ignorance regarding what the frantic Salvary royals were asking of her. Seated side by side in absolute, unwavering authority, Gilbert and Ashley stared down at the groveling royal family with unapologetic dominance. Dismissing their ridiculous demands entirely, Ashley calmly stated that their dire problem had absolutely nothing to do with her. Turning gracefully to her side, she smoothly asked Prince Gilbert to completely validate her uncaring stance. Ignoring the frantic mother's shrieks that Austen's life was in immediate danger, Gilbert coldly confirmed Ashley's absolute indifference. He nonchalantly reminded the crying intruders that they had a scheduled orphanage visit to attend to, effectively dismissing their emergency as an annoyance. Outraged by their callousness, the desperate queen screamed, demanding to know how Ashley could possibly feel nothing at all. Mocking their pain with a theatrical gasp, Ashley offered a hollow, highly sarcastic expression of sympathy. Tilting her head with an air of complete, untouchable superiority, Ashley innocently asked if there was a problem. Though they furiously insisted there was, she arrogantly claimed that absolutely nothing came to mind. Gritting his teeth in venomous, unrestrained rage, Austen spat her name out like a vile curse. He furiously accused her of becoming insufferably arrogant simply because she had managed to marry Gilbert. Unfazed by his pathetic insults, Ashley coldly noted his sheer audacity to speak so brazenly while his parents suffered. Smiling radiantly at his boiling anger, she mockingly thanked him for what she considered a truly delightful compliment. The narrative mercilessly detailed how the once proud house of Fernet had completely collapsed in utter ruin. Having entirely lost their grand home, The disgraced couple had been unceremoniously thrown out into a terrible, humiliating state of affairs. Dropping her mocking, playful facade entirely, Ashley closed her eyes and solemnly acknowledged the grim reality of their pathetic situation. Staring them down with bitter, deeply rooted resentment, she recalled how she was treated as nothing more than a convenient tool. The royals furiously interrupted her dark thoughts, demanding to know why she stubbornly refused to meet their desperate demands. Stuttering in sheer disbelief at her unprecedented cold defiance, the sweating king asked what absolute nonsense she was spouting. Fixing him with a dead-eyed, piercing stare, Ashley coldly questioned if there was even a point to this pathetic reunion. Recalling a deeply painful past insult, Ashley revealed that they had only ever cared about strengthening her powers for Austen's utterly selfish sake. She then dealt a crushing psychological blow by praising Lady Yuena as a genuinely lovely person, perfectly contrasting their vile, manipulative nature. Horrified by her sudden mention of the other woman, the panicked queen shrilly accused Ashley of knowing the hidden truth behind Yuena's mysterious disappearance. Austen visibly faltered, stunned to his core that Yuena had spoken those exact, revealing words to Ashley. Feigning complete, untouchable innocence with a sly touch to her lips, Ashley claimed she merely answered Yuena's curious questions. She casually brushed off their frantic, screaming accusations with a light-hearted, deeply infuriating denial. Pointing a trembling finger at the imposing throne, Austen fiercely blamed Ashley for planting unnecessary, destructive ideas into Yuena's naive head. His voice cracked with a pathetic mixture of immense grief and unbridled fury as he shouted her name. Her eyes widening with sudden, terrifying intensity, Ashley dangerously echoed his incredibly poor choice of the word unnecessary. Gripping her own face in a twisted, psychotic display of bitter vindication, she revealed she only taught Yuena the incredibly harsh reality she herself had suffered. She venomously declared that in their cruel kingdom, anyone deemed useless was instantly discarded like worthless, forgotten trash. Stepping in with absolute, freezing logic, Gilbert explained that their unlawfully summoned sorcerer had simply returned Yuena to her original world. He added that the fool's physical body was completely destroyed due to his arrogant, reckless overuse of forbidden dark arts. Completely ignoring the terrifying reality of their own selfish actions, the pathetic king continued to beg Ashley for her miraculous strength. He groveled desperately, sweating profusely while claiming that time was quickly running out for his cursed, dying son. Remaining perfectly, terrifyingly composed, Gilbert gently told Ashley that she possessed the absolute power to do exactly as she pleased with them. Seeking guidance in the suffocatingly tense room, an unseen attendant quietly asked Highness Gilbert how they should officially proceed. Narrowing her eyes as she weighed her immense, absolute power over her former abusers, Ashley softly whispered her final, calculating judgment. Reverting entirely to her maddeningly sly demeanor, she repeated that she had simply provided Lady Yuena with the harsh truths she desperately sought. She playfully denied any direct, malicious involvement in the girl's ultimate, tragic disappearance. Pushed far past his psychological breaking point, Austen aggressively pointed his finger and screamed that Ashley was the sole reason Yuena had abandoned him. He completely lost his royal composure, shouting her name in pure, unadulterated hatred. Staring through her clutching fingers with a chillingly broken expression, Ashley promised that she had only shared her own traumatic, painful experiences. She drove the final nail into their coffins, repeating that they inevitably threw away anyone who lost their absolute usefulness like discarded, pathetic trash. Her eyes widening with sudden, terrifying intensity, Ashley dangerously echoed his incredibly poor choice of the word unnecessary. Staring down at her former fiancé with absolute disdain, Ashley coldly questioned if there was any actual benefit for her or the Paisley kingdom in treating him. Gazing upon the groveling royals from her elevated throne, she mocked their shamelessness and asked if they truly expected to receive her miraculous treatment for free. Leaning back with an air of absolute superiority, she ruthlessly pointed out that their kingdom's citizens were defecting in droves and their royal coffers were completely empty. Desperate and sweating profusely, the pathetic king stammered out empty promises to pay for her services. Looking down at them with icy calm, she explained that their current desperation was the direct consequence of abandoning her while foolishly neglecting medical development in favor of magic. Turning her gaze away, she pointedly noted that she still hadn't received a proper apology for the years of abuse they put her through. Instantly shedding whatever remained of their royal dignity, the king and queen bowed deeply and frantically screamed their apologies in a desperate bid to save Austen. A heavy, suffocating silence filled the grand throne room as Ashley and Gilbert impassively watched the ruined monarchs grovel at their feet. Looking up with pathetic, tear-filled eyes, the desperate queen stammered that they had finally apologized and begged Ashley to treat her dying son. Unmoved by their pathetic display, Ashley calmly reminded them that she had endured dreadful treatment from Prince Austen for a very long time. The horrific weight of his past cruelties finally crashed down upon Austen, leaving him staring upward with a pale, trembling expression of pure dread. Looking down at the broken prince, Ashley mercilessly declared that she resented him to death. Ignoring their frantic, begging cries, she formally refused their request and vowed to use her immense power only for the people she genuinely loved. Her eyes burning with years of suppressed agony, she looked down at her tormentors and stated that she utterly despised them all to death. Snapping completely under the weight of her unforgiving rejection, Austen muttered deliriously to himself and suddenly drew a hidden blade. Screaming that he would never forgive her, the crazed prince lunged violently at Ashley with his sword raised, blaming her for every ounce of his miserable ruin. A blinding flash of magical energy erupted across the throne room as the desperate attack met an impenetrable defense. Austen's violent momentum was instantly halted as he choked violently, thick black blood suddenly pouring from his mouth. A massive, intricate magical barrier adorned with a dark rose crest flared to life, easily deflecting the pathetic assassination attempt. Standing safely behind the powerful magical shield, Ashley watched with wide eyes as her former fiancé collapsed. The grand hall echoed with the queen's agonizing shriek as Austen collapsed to the cold floor, his chest blown open by his own deflected malice. Maintaining her absolute composure, she casually noted her relief at having prepared a defensive barrier while assuring Gilbert she was completely unharmed. Ignoring the fallen prince entirely, Ashley sat back down with icy indifference while the frantic mothers screamed her name in pure horror. Tears streaming down her ruined face, the hysterical queen fiercely blamed Ashley for the tragedy while desperately screaming for medical help. Staring blankly at the chaotic, bloody scene, Ashley listened to the frantic pleas for help with absolutely zero intention of moving a single muscle. Gazing coldly at the massive, fatal wound soaking the prince's royal garments, she quietly declared that it was already far too late to save him. A few short weeks later, an official obituary marked the pathetic end of Austen Gino Salveri, quickly followed by the total collapse of the Salveri kingdom itself. Wasting no time, Gilbert effectively absorbed the fallen territory into the Paisley kingdom while dispatching knights to rebuild the city and protect the new borders. Sitting comfortably beside her husband, Ashley softly expressed her profound gratitude and asked if her long nightmare was finally over. Gripping the fabric of her dress, she listened as Gilbert gently asked if the immense pain and sorrow in her heart had finally started to clear. Leaning into his warm embrace, she smiled brightly and confessed her deep love for the man who had saved her. Closing her eyes in deep, peaceful contentment, she softly whispered to herself that everything was finally fine. Her thoughts drifted back to a distant, innocent memory of herself walking toward a shimmering magical crystal within a grand palace hall. The older Ashley watched the phantom of her younger self smile with bright, uncorrupted hope. In the fading memory, a young and cheerful Austen ran forward with a bright smile, eagerly calling out her name to join a tea party. The young Ashley turned back to look before happily running off into a bright, blinding light alongside the boy. Opening her eyes, the present Ashley let go of the bittersweet past with a gentle, forgiving smile. A single, silent tear rolled down her cheek as she finally laid the heavy ghosts of her childhood to rest. The quiet, emotional moment was suddenly shattered by the energetic shout of a young boy calling for his mother. Waking up in her comfortable bed, Ashley was immediately greeted by her concerned son, asking if something sad had happened to make her cry. Wiping her tears, she explained that she was just dreaming of the old days, prompting her sweet son and Gilbert to comfort her. Looking at her beautiful family, she beamed with absolute joy and declared that she was incredibly happy. Returning her warm smile, Gilbert affectionately noted that she hadn't changed a bit and confessed he couldn't imagine life without her. Pulling both his wife and little Gino into a tight, loving embrace, Gilbert's warmth proved to Ashley that she was truly, finally fine. Surrounded by the absolute warmth of her new family, she softly thanked them and expressed her boundless love.